this is Sumit. So I came here with part 2 of the topic which we have covered in the last video, how to identify and attack unprotected pieces and pawns. So in part 2, we are going to look at another position.
Hereafter, white's move queen b3, black played c4, queen takes b6, now knight takes b6. Here white played a3. So we are going to analyze the position after the move a3. This move of white a3 I found inaccurate by further analyzing the position. Here we can see that all of the pieces and pawns of black are protected, like bishop on g7, knight on f6, knight on b6, bishop on c8, and pawns on d5, c4, b7, a7, h7, g6, f7, except the pawn on e7, which is unprotected, but it is on the 7th rank and difficult to be attacked. On the other side, white's position is slightly less solid because of the unprotected bishop on e2. But it is very difficult for black to take on, as it is so well sheltered by the pawn chain, and it is also on the 2nd rank. If we check further the pawn structure of white, then the pawn on b2 is also unprotected. Now black played knight a4 as usual to attack on b2 pawn. So if we look at the pawn on c3, there is one defender, which is the pawn on b2, and one attacker, and it is the knight on a4. So if white plays b3 now, then the pawn on c3 will be unprotected and it will be taken by the knight immediately. Further, white cannot take the pawn on c4 because bishop on e2 is unprotected and is under attack by the knight on c3. So white has the option now to protect the pawn by moving rook a2, which is rather an awkward way, as the rook on a2 will be completely out of play just to save the pawn on b2. So white will have to choose to protect the b2 pawn by moving rook on b1. Also by this way, rook on b1 and rook on f1 will be connected at the back rank. Now black plays bishop f5 to attack the defender of b2 pawn, I mean the rook on b1. So as all of we know that the bishop is worth considered than a rook, so now white is really in the trouble to protect b2 pawn. As if white moves his rook to a1 or c1, the black knight will capture the pawn on b2, leading to a clear advantage for black. Now if white will not move the rook, the only choice the white has to move the pawn to e4. Black may take now the pawn on e4, but the knight cross e4, knight cross e4, bishop cross e4. This will continue the attack on the rook on b1 and also further on pawn on b2. Here, white couldn't really not take the knight on e4, as black attack will be multiple by knight cross d2, knight cross d2, and further bishop cross b1. So after bishop cross e4, we can also see that the only unprotected pawn of black, which is on e7, is now under attack by white's bishop, which we thought earlier that it is difficult to be attacked being on 7th rank. But in chess, as the position continues, any unprotected piece or pawn may be attacked further. However, after bishop cross e7, black will move his rook on e8. So white has to resign now, as the rook on b1 is in danger and also the bishop on e7. We can also see that the bishop on e2 will also be in danger by the rook on e8 further. Now the thing is what here, in very first position, we saw that all unprotected pieces and pawns of both of the sides, like white's bishop on e2, white's pawn on b2, and black's pawn on e7, were attacked in latter position as the game continues, even if it was difficult to be attacked earlier. So what we learn here is that we have to keep a close eye on all of the unprotected pieces and pawns of both of the sides in each possible variation we calculate or analyze.
So I hope you liked and enjoyed the part 2 of this topic. Thanks for watching this video.